additions or deletions to the agenda? So you want,
I was going to suggest one, which is just changing the name of what's going on. Instead of a change order for Edge Hill Road, it's actually a contract matter. It's a whole new contract.
weren't we gonna delete short-term rentals too?
If you want to, yeah, whatever.
Bob hasn't been able to get back to us yet.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that that is said, that the reason that we're kicking it down to the next meeting is because we haven't heard from the attorney.
Yeah.
And I spoke today with Ben Sargent and Bill Cinsagalli to let them know that this is a likelihood that this would take place because we hadn't heard from the town attorney.
Do we make a motion now, or do we just pass over it when the time comes?
Your choice.
Yeah, we can do either.
I would prefer to pass over it when the time comes, if that's all right.
Let it come up and, yeah, okay.
Anyone care to make the,
I would move to amend agenda item 10B from consider change order for Edge Hill Road Repairs Project, RFP 2023-19, to award contract for Edge Hill Road Culvert Repairs Project.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 3, executive session, the appointment or employment or evaluation of public officer or employee per 1 VSA 313A3.
I move to enter executive session to consider the appointment or employment of a town employee pursuant to Title I PSA Section 313A3 and invite Debbie Carlton to attend the executive session.
And Shane.
Okay.
And Shane.
And Shane.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Want to turn your recorder back on?
Yeah.
Anyone can make that motion.
I move to hire Debbie Carlton to the part-time minute taker position at a rate of pay of $22 per hour effective Monday, November 13th, 2023, subject to completion of a probationary period of 6 months.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4, minutes approval, meeting. Minutes approval, meetings of 10/16, 10/26, and 11/2/2023. Anyone care to make the motion?
Happy to approve the minutes, or I move to approve the minutes of the select board meeting of October 6, 2023. Do you want me to do all three?
That's fine.
Yep. I move to approve the minutes of the select board meetings of October 26, 2023. And I move to approve the minutes of the select board meeting of November 2nd, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on. Item 5, select board pay orders.
I move to approve the pay orders for payroll and accounts payable.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 6 is announcements and correspondence.
Got a few things.
I can make a couple of them.
How about it?
Well, town office will be closed this Friday for Veterans Day, and will be closed the 23rd and the 24th for Thanksgiving.
Already.
I received a note today from BDCC regarding the planned visit on the 13th of this month from the U.S. Economic Development Administration. A representative from Philadelphia will be here to just look at flood recovery and businesses and what businesses have been impacted. We'd like to coordinate that visit. And the question is, who would you all like to be meeting with this entourage? I don't know how many people will be there, but I know, Tom, you said you'd be out of town. But
Yeah, I'll be at deer camp.
yeah, I could do it.
I think Kelly said in an email just now that she can do it.
Kelly's
available.
Good. And didn't know if you all wanted to, or...
Say the date, the 13th?
Yeah, 13th from 2 to 3:30, roughly 2 o'clock. But insofar as businesses, that most of my work, almost all of my work has been on town infrastructural matters as opposed to business things. So I'm not necessarily the best person for that sort of work.
I'm happy to join. Yeah.
I mean, I
Great.
feel like you've been
Yeah.
pretty
Time is
heavily
2
involved.
o'clock? 2 o'clock, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll
Send me
coordinate.
some more
I'll
stuff.
coordinate where we'll meet and make sure you guys know about it.
Thank you all for that.
Yeah.
Vermont wood chips appeal at the Vermont Environmental Court. It has to do with the notice violation from 2019. We're headed to court sometime in February, and responses to interrogatories are happening this week, so we have to answer a bunch of questions. And I was on the phone with Bob Fisher quite a bit on that today. I'll be out of the office Wednesday through Friday this week, but I forgot that Friday was closed anyway. But correspondence in your meeting packet is the following. We got a letter from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns regarding insurance rates for this next year. Workers' comp is down by 1.6%, liabilities up 2%, and property up 8.7%, which is not good. We have a letter from the Sheriff's Office on their FY 2025 service contract rates. Those are going up from 52 an hour to excuse me, 54 an hour. Also, there's an invitation to a regional policing presentation that's going to happen on the 15th from 10 till noon. I hope to go to that, but that's at the old Ferry Road offices in Brattleboro. Again, the 15th in the morning. We have 2 letters of thanks for the town's annual contributions. One's from Sevka, the other is from Mountain Valley. And lastly, we have a notice of the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District. They're having an online hearing on its annual report and financials. That's scheduled for this week, the 8th, so Wednesday at 5 p.m. And you'll have that information in your meeting packet. And that's all I have.
All right, moving on to item 7. Visitors and concerned citizens. 7A is meet with representatives of Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, SEVITS.
Hi there. Should I stand up for?
Sure. It makes you feel good.
All right. So, hi, thanks for having us. My name is Alex Beck. I'm the Workforce and Education Program Manager with the BDCC. I'm usually here on town meeting day. And we're here to, as we do with all our communities that support us, to just share what we do and answer any questions you might have. I believe we've submitted our funding request already, and would love, supposed to ask to send the format you want for the impact report to Meg, who I think.
See me.
Great.
I just need a PDF.
Okay, and she can just send you a PDF.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
One page,
I've done
preferably.
my job. So we are the region's economic development organization. We do business support for businesses of all sizes and workforce development for people of all ages generally. We have high school career programs and adult workforce programs, and most recently have been supporting new Vermonters in the Brattleboro area gaining employment as well. I think what's unfortunate is the value of SEVEDS has been really clear this summer. What SEVEDS does well is we get to know the communities that support us and where we can be flexible. And unfortunately, that flexibility often comes during disasters. And so I think, Jack was working with me on workforce programs before July. And it is flexibility that it's not my grant program that allows someone like Jack to move into a different role and be there to support folks when they need it. And so, he will speak to the flood recovery projects he did, but I think it is the work that SEVEDS does and your support of it that allows us to do that work well. We know the communities. It's not the first time we're coming up there when something bad happens. We know you folks. We know the people who work for the town, and so it makes our jobs, a little bit easier to serve that role in supporting folks. So, Jack,
yes, thank you, Alex. My name is Jack Sprayman. I also work for BDCC, and I just wanted to give you a brief overview of Londonderry's kind of let me back up. The Vermont Community Foundation awarded us, BDCC, with $30,000 to distribute to the flooded areas, in the Wyndham region. And they were for businesses only, unfortunately. So nonprofits received technical assistance from us. I believe 7 nonprofits and businesses received only technical assistance in the Londonderry, and 10 businesses received direct support via these Vermont Community Foundation funds that were given to us. And I think it was $17,250 went to 10 Londonderry businesses, and so as I said before, 7 did not receive funds, but did receive technical assistance from us. And so I'll just piggyback on what Alex mentioned. The municipal funding that we're requesting in the SEVEDS that contributes to this our SEVEDS funds allowed the flexibility for a staffer like myself to come here, actually see the damage, meet the businesses, and get acquainted with all that and get the help that the businesses needed. So that impact alone was huge. So thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
I'll just ask for clarification. Is SEVEDS the throughput organization or money that your organization?
Yeah, so
Yes.
SEVEDS is, it's a board. The best way to think about it is it's a strategic board that raises the money that municipalities contribute to it, and really holds the community vision of the region's economic development goals. So when we talk about the SEDS projects, those are our region's priorities. That's what SEVEDS holds. And then what SEVEDS will do is they'll go to the BDCC, I know it's complicated, and say, you know, you shouldn't only do this because of economic development. Our region believes that this is what economic development looks like. And so by prioritizing our community's needs through SEVEDS, we're able to do things like start a high school career program. So that was a priority that came up through SEVEDS, and you know, many years ago, the BDCC was mostly just a real estate organization. And then SEVEDS came, and they said, okay, that's great, and you need to start thinking about workforce. And we need to be able to support smaller communities outside of Brattleboro in what they want to do for economic development. So SEVEDS doesn't have staff, but they are the ones who says, okay, BDCC, it is, you know, if you want the funds we've raised and if you want to benefit from the support from the communities you serve, here are the goals. And so that is what program officers are really charged with doing, is, you know, taking those strategic goals. So again, BDCC are the staff people, but SEVEDS really establishes the programs and the direction that we should be focused on.
And do other counties or regions of the state have the same setup? Meaning there's an organization like SEVEDS and there's a BDCC?
Yeah, so in Vermont, there's the Planning Commission and the Regional Development Corporation. And so what they don't have is the SEVEDS. I think that the question around that is really around how strategic economic development is done in other communities. So I don't want to say, I think it makes us better at what we do, because we're not only focused on you know, jobs blindly. You know, we want good high wage jobs. We want jobs that our local kids will be able to get. And so that's different, and that's what SEVEDS kind of brings into our work. So a lot of places, you know, where there's county government, a lot of this is housed in one place. And so the county does strategic planning on its own, and they do all this together. Because we don't have a county government model, we're
This is the workaround or
yeah.
whatever, yeah. Thank you.
Has there been any conversation around workforce housing and partnering along with?
every day.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's above my pay grade to say, but I think if it was easy to build more housing, we would have seen more housing. I think there's a lot of good conversations happening, but from, you know, the regulatory environment still needs to change a little bit for the kind of workforce housing we're talking about, but yes, I mean, so we are actively involved in the housing coalition groups and talking with developers all the time who want to know more about how to get more housing into our communities. Again, if there was a good answer, we would have seen more housing built already, but I think that's what we're hoping to see. What we're, you know, the role we often play is ensuring that when new units are being discussed, that they're inclusive of a wide diversity of income levels. And that workforce housing, 80 to 120% of household income, but even a little bit higher, that's why we're a part of those conversations, to say something new or big is happening, make sure it's inclusive to all the folks who need housing, which right now workforce housing is our greatest shortage. So.
Well, I think that if we're talking about economic development and creating more jobs, we have to have a place for those people to live.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the biggest barrier our region probably faces across the board from an economic perspective. If we want more young families, their kids are gonna need someplace to live, and, you know, across the board, we need more housing, and I think that, yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, it's a top priority, but we're not housing developers. So,
Right.
so yes, so I think
Sure.
to the extent that we can be a part of this, I know we are, but, yeah, it's top of our priority in what we do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that Jack stopped by quite often soon after the flooding, and every time he was in town to check in with me. I really appreciate that, just to talk about the different efforts that BDCC was bringing to bear. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Alright, we'll move on to 7B, V-Trans Regional Concern Meeting, Londonderry STB, Culvert 125, culvert replacement with cattle pass on Vermont Route 11 in the vicinity of Taylor Farm.
So I have a presentation, so I'm going to plug it into this TV. Hopefully it works.
Exciting. Thank you. No, thank you very much.
No Jackson.
Oh, yeah. You do good work.
The remote's right there on the shelf, I think.
See?
No. No, they haven't.
Are there any teenagers in the crowd?
We just lost him.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell, so.
I feel like you were here for maybe one of them, but maybe like the last one.
HDMI 2.
This wasn't really good.
There you go. Should
Go get the damn thing.
you hit escape.
Nothing yet. Alright. Display. Detect it.
Detecting device.
Tom, what is a cattle pass? Is it something cows on the road? Literally, I never knew how that happened. At Taylor Farm, did the cows use it?
Yeah, they did years ago. I don't know if they graze them on that
I
side.
don't think I've seen them on the other side of the.
So,
I don't know if it's because of the condition or if it's just because
Right.
they had more pets.
Right. So how many bits industrial?
Not to working.
maybe try to help.
Well, I think it's replaced by, because of its condition and historical presence. Right, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Few changes.
Here, 5.
Awesome. They could have figured this out quicker than you could. Sorry about the delay. So welcome, this is the Regional Concerns Meeting for Bridge 25 on Vermont Route 11. I'm Laura Stone, I'm the V-Trans Scoping Engineer. We also have Jonathan Griffin tonight. He's going to be the V-Trans Design Project Manager, so after scoping, the project is going to be in his wheelhouse. So the purpose of the meeting tonight, we want to provide an understanding of our approach to the project, talk about the project constraints surrounding the culvert, discuss our selected alternative and maintenance of traffic options that we selected, and I have provided an opportunity to ask questions and voice concerns. I have that at the bottom, but this can be interactive and you can ask me questions at any time. So there's a location map of the culvert. It is located on Vermont 11 right at Taylor Farm. There's an aerial view. It is a dry cattle pass that serves the Taylor Farm. So meeting overview, I'm going to talk briefly about our project development process so you have an idea where we are in our process. Again, we're going to give a project overview to talk about the existing conditions of the culvert, the alternatives we considered in our scoping report, talk about our selected alternative, maintenance of traffic, schedule, so when you can expect to see this in construction, Summary, and again, questions at the bottom, but I'm happy to take questions anytime. So here's just a timeline of our project development process, and this slide is really just to show that we're at a really, really early stage of project development. So a project has been funded, and we're in this stage called project definition. This is when we identify environmental resources, cultural resources. We identify the constraints surrounding the project. We evaluate alternatives, which ends in the scoping report, which the town has a copy of. We have this public participation piece, which is where we are now, and really we want to build consensus towards an alternative, how we want to proceed here. And after this public participation piece, we're at project define. So that's when we're going to be quantifying the areas of impact, start the right-of-way permitting, right-of-way and permitting processes. That's when we're going to start developing our plans, estimates, and specifications. After that, the contract will be awarded and it will enter construction. So here's a picture looking west over the Cattle Pass. The road is classified as a rural minor arterial. It is a 6-foot span metal plate pipe constructed in 1948 and owned by the state of Vermont. So there are there's no town share for this project. 80% federally funded, 20% state funded. Here's a picture looking east over the culvert. There's no buried infrastructure through the project area. We do have aerial utilities that cross right over the road, right over the culvert really. So it is anticipated that overhead utilities may need to be relocated for replacement of the Cattle Pass. So existing conditions, the culvert is in fair condition. There is some deformation and crushing happening throughout the pipe. There's debris in the pipe that should be flushed clear. That's more of a maintenance issue. And the Taylor farm does have a herd of less than 50 cows. So we size our cattle passes based on the number of cows that the farm has, and it is less than 50. So again, the culvert it's rated a 6 in satisfactory condition, but it's starting to have a lot of deformation and sagging at the top of the culvert. Here's a picture looking south. It's really surrounded by our agricultural land. Picture looking north. Existing resources in the area, so it is within the northern long-eared bat habitat range, and so that really just restricts what time of year we can cut any trees down. There are agricultural soils, primary ag soils identified in the project area. It is located on a farm, so that makes sense. Wetlands, there are mapped wetlands at both the inlet and the outlet of the culvert. Historic, so the culvert itself is not historic, but the farmstead was identified as a potentially 4F historic property. And archaeological sensitive areas, there is a stone wall south of the culvert that may be foundation remains of a barn or other farm-related structures, so those might be archaeologically sensitive. So here's the existing conditions layouts. This is like a bird's eye view looking down at the culvert. I usually have a pointer, but it doesn't work on TV. So the culvert is right here. Also to point out, these red lines are the state-owned right-of-way. We do have this 4F property here. This is the Taylor Farm, which is the historic sensitive areas. This line here with the triangles, those are the wetlands that were mapped at both the inlet and outlet. And the area of archaeological sensitivity is in this quadrant right here, so a little bit farther away from the culvert. So we do have an average daily traffic of 4,970 vehicles per day. There's a design hourly volume of 770 vehicles per hour, and pretty high percentage of trucks, 14.8% trucks. So Title 19 highways. This is just the piece of legislation that says that we need to install a cattle pass and make sure that we're providing a cattle pass to the farm. And it specifies that for farms with 50 cows or less, it needs to be a 5-foot wide structure, 6 feet 3 inches high. is what needs to be provided for cattle passes. So alternatives that we considered in the scoping report, we looked at no action. There are a lot of concerns about the deformation happening right now. Once that starts to happen, it can accelerate pretty quickly. So additional maintenance is required within the next 10 years. We looked at doing a spray-on liner, so that would be spraying just a concrete liner on the inside of that existing pipe. It does meet the minimum roadway geometric standards. We would expect about 15 to 30 years out of that kind of rehabilitation. And it would reduce the inside diameter of that pipe by about 4 inches. Next, we looked at a full bridge replacement with a new concrete box culvert. It would meet all legal requirements per the legislation. It would be a 5-foot span, 7-foot 3-inch rise with a foot of Class 1 stone in the bottom. Again, it meets the minimum roadway geometric standards, and we design our boxes for a 75-year design life. So our selected alternative was a full bridge replacement, replace the existing culvert with a new 4-sided concrete box. Again, that 5-foot span. Here we have put in Class 1 stone in the bottom, but the invert material, that'll be determined. We'll work with the Taylor farm to decide what's cow friendly. And the new box, we're going to shorten it up a little bit and put head walls on there. And again, that'll be designed to 75 years. So here's a layout of the new structure. So we are showing it, so the new structure is this gray box right here. We are showing it a little bit more squared up with the road. That's just a better alignment from a construction standpoint. Again, it meets all legal requirements. There are no bank-full width requirements, it's dry. The road width meets the minimum standard, and again, a design life of 75 years. So maintenance of traffic options, so that's what everybody really wants to hear, is how are we maintaining traffic? So we looked at an off-site detour. That's when we close the road and reroute traffic onto a detour. We looked at phased construction. So phased construction is when you build 1/2 of the structure at a time while maintaining traffic on the other side of the road. It does allow the road to stay open during construction, but it has reduced lane widths and a long construction season. And then next, a temporary bridge. Temporary bridge on either side would have limits outside the existing right-of-way, wetland impacts, potential archaeologically sensitive impacts to a historic property. So our selected alternative here is a road closure. Detour would be chosen and signed by the state. The shortest state-signed detour route around is 24 miles end-to-end, so that's keeping traffic only on state roads. We understand there's a high amount of traffic, and that is a far distance, and so we thought this is a situation where we need to do a hyper-accelerated closure, so we are proposing a 60-hour closure duration, so that's either a long weekend or it could be done during the week. That's something that we would work with the town to determine. So here is the through route on Vermont 11. Here is the detour route. So the official state-signed detour route would be Vermont 11 to Vermont 30 to Vermont 100 back to Vermont 11. So again, that is if you're going from one side of Taylor Farm all the way around to the other side of Taylor Farm, 24 miles. There is a local bypass route available. So the local bypass route is that Riley Road, really? Riley Road? To Landgrove Road back to Vermont 11. So that is end-to-end distance is 5 miles. So that wouldn't be a state-signed detour. We wouldn't sign that. We know that vehicles are going to be using that, and that the town might need additional funds for either speed control or dust control. So there is a local bypass mitigation grant that we can apply for, and so that provides funds to the town to maintain that during the closure duration. Preliminary project schedule. So we have this in our budget for 2025. There's potentially a little bit of right-of-way that needs to be acquired. There's potentially need a overhead utility relocation. So that is, you know, there's a couple risks that could move that out into 2026, but right now we're planning on 2025. Total cost estimate of $950,000. So project summary, replace the existing culvert with a new 4-sided concrete box while maintaining traffic on an off-site detour for 60 hours. Again, 5-foot span cattle pass. We'll work with the town to figure out the invert material. And new 75-year design life structure. So before I open it up to questions, there is a website at the top of this page here, and the town has a copy of this website. So tonight's presentation will be up on that website. All future plan submittals, conceptual plans, preliminary plans will all be put up there, any future presentations. So it's just a public-facing website where people can follow the life of the project. Questions, concerns?
Has Taylor Farm indicated that they need it? They need this cattle accepting passway?
So that's a good question. So construction needs to happen regardless
Right.
if there's cows or not because of the failing structure.
Right.
So that needs to come out. I did call the Taylor Farm and they said that they have 9 cows. Sometimes they said upwards of 25, but typically around 9. And it's in our legislation that that we need to provide them a cattle pass. So yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it needed for drainage, water drainage in any way?
It's not needed for water drainage, no. And there's another drainage pipe
Right,
located,
just east.
yes, right there. So just east of the culvert, there is another pipe there. So it's potential that if the cattle pass wasn't needed, if we plugged that up, we might need to upsize that other drainage culvert. But because we're planning to put in the cattle pass, we haven't run those numbers hydraulically.
One concern I'm thinking about is Landgrove Road, and we recently received a Class 2 paving grant for that, and that's probably 2 years out or so, and that road's in tough condition, and I'm not sure if it's going to stand up to a lot of that much speeding of it with trucks in particular.
So is that project planning to happen 2025 or 2026?
Don't know.
2026, I
Is it
believe.
26?
I believe, but I'm not positive. Do you have the paving schedule?
I don't have it. But anyway, we're working with the district office on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful information because I don't know if we'd want to push out our project till after that project happens. That's something that we should definitely work with the town on. Yeah.
Or the opposite, if you want to let the existing road get beat up a little more and then pave it
Yeah,
out.
2026.
Yeah, I would think we would pave after this.
You want to pave after this?
So I'm just
Okay.
thinking wear and tear,
Yep.
we don't want that,
Okay.
Yeah, we have it scheduled for 2026.
26.
Okay.
Soon being the soonest.
And we certainly wouldn't want both projects happening at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think more importantly for us, we don't want the wear and tear on new pavement of 14, 20, whatever it is, % trucks.
Yep.
Trucks will have to take the state.
Yeah, they'll be the state.
Yeah,
Supposed to.
I think that trucks would have a really hard time with this turn here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's gonna be a public outreach consultant on board. They're gonna have extensive outreach to the trucking community, so they're gonna know about this and know that they need to take the detour. There's always gonna be a truck that's gonna go all the way up to the bridge and then gonna have to turn around. It happens.
Was there any assessment of the culvert that's right close by there? Does it make sense to do the 2 projects at the same time, or?
Yeah, so that culvert's under 6 feet. And I believe it's a 30-inch culvert right now, and it seems to be in pretty decent shape. So at this point, we're not planning to replace that. We're just going to keep that in place. It is close enough that if it was determined that condition-wise it needed to be updated, that is something that could probably be added to the project.
Yeah, definitely could be. If the condition warranted it, no problem, because if it's only 50 feet away, then when we're paving, we just do it once.
Do both,
Yeah. Yes.
Could you state the website for the GNet audience? I can't get that angle.
Oh, I'm going the wrong way here. How about I just turn the TV for you?
That would work.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a long one.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can put a link to it on our website, too.
That'd be good too, thanks. And also, if they relocate the utility lines, where would they go?
So it's possible that they could just raise the utility lines up, so they might just raise them. In terms of utility relocation, that's something that would happen during design. So we'd figure that out. Yeah, hasn't been determined yet.
We usually meet with utility companies on site. They look at what they have for slack angles in the lines to try and help us determine the best location to be out of our way, but also not require them to do any unnecessary amount of resplicing of lines if there's fiber or anything else on there. Communications are the more difficult ones to relocate. Power is pretty easy to move, but then we also have to look at things like guy wires, anchors. When you move a pole, then you change the angle, and you change the angle for the next few poles, so then you end up having to chase that utility relocation quite a ways. And then you could have additional right-of-way impacts for those poles and anchors. So we go out on site, we meet with them, and we try and come up with the least intensive relocation plan that we can. And sometimes, if we can get the structure size small enough, just going vertically up to give them the 10-foot offset above equipment is the easiest way.
If you require those mobile homes that are coming from New York State up 11 to turn right and head down 30 towards Stratton, turn left on 100 coming north, they're not going to be able to make the turn onto 11 in Londonderry, right in front of the marketplace. There's no way they could make that. Would you just have to tell them that they can't drive those days?
They could either find an alternate route, if there's an alternate route that they can take,
you
or
would
they'll
warn them.
know ahead of time. They'll know
Yeah.
ahead of time when
They
that
wouldn't make
60
the bridge
days,
in
60
South.
hours is gonna happen.
Yeah, it would be a,
Those are also permanent vehicles, so
those are what,
if
permit?
they're over width, over height, or over length, or over weight, you have to apply for a permit through DMV. And then depending on length, width, or height, you go through an engineering review, which actually will come into our shop. And they will propose a route that they can make the radiuses, or that they can go under the overpasses if they're too tall, or if they're too wide, if there's a construction site with narrowed up barrier. So any of those large vehicular loads you see that are not just a normal semi are considered permanent vehicles and have to get special permits to move. And then they go through engineering review depending on weight, length, width, height. So they would be sent around, and they might have to go way around.
Please, yes.
Any other questions, comments?
I was dealing with the right-of-way office for some time, and there was some questions about town right-of-way from years past, and there was a change. Do you know if right-of-way's been cleared for this project?
So once this moves into design, they're gonna dive deeper into the deeds and titles, and they will, so right now it's approximate right-of-way lines. So
This
once.
is a year, almost two ago, where there was a lot of back and forth on it.
Yeah, so probably after conceptual plans are done, and we have kind of our limit of impacts, then they'll really go out there and do some more research. So that'll probably be like in the next 6 months, I would expect them
6 months to a year.
6 months to a year.
We'll do what we call right-of-way plans and titles, so we'll actually have them surveyed and calculated and verified based on what our plan of action is, whether or not we need rights from adjacent property owners or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting right-of-way lines.
I think
They moved
the
the road
town,
in.
the town signed off on our old right-of-way, or we as a board, not very long ago, so that process could still be lingering.
It was a lot of back and forth between the agency and the town.
Do you remember who the point of contact was?
I could look it up.
Okay, I'm guessing it's gonna be Trey, be my guess, but we can also follow up on them.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. What time of year is the best time of year for a 60-hour closure?
Right now.
Yes.
November.
Well, not when school's gonna be.
I was gonna say, yeah, it would have to be a weekend
Yeah.
or when school's out.
60
All the
hours.
buses, most of the buses come back to Londonderry.
60 hours is a very doable, I believe, with the site. So that would start Friday night, 6 p.m. and be open by Monday morning, 6 a.m. So it shouldn't have an effect on schools unless something unexpected happened, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't know, but we've successfully done other projects in this amount of time of comparable scope.
Maybe there's a school break that it could align with, a long weekend maybe or something.
Veterans Day weekend.
Except that sometimes when most of the tourists are up, right? So they'd be using that road maybe more than normal.
Well, Veterans Day is like this weekend, right? So
Yeah.
It's later than
This is a good time.
leaf
It
peepers.
doesn't always fall on a weekend, so.
Right, that's true. Maybe it's observed by the school on
Yeah.
a Monday or a Friday, but I don't know that for sure.
And right away, I was dealing with Elias Wilder.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time here.
He'll probably be back.
He won't be happy.
He won't be,
Yeah.
he won't like that.
It was when the state moved Route 11. So he was trying to look in really great records and it
Didn't go well.
no,
Turned
didn't
into
go-
a
didn't go
little
well.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I didn't get any tomatoes thrown, so that's good.
Any other visitors and concerned citizens? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 8, town official business. 8A is Williams Dam Advisory Committee. Discuss committee charge.
Tom, I have a statement from the committee, if I could read it in.
Go ahead.
All right. At last week's dam committee meeting, we voted to support additional engineering exploration to the select board agenda. After careful consideration, the committee determined that existing studies do not provide enough data to make a responsible recommendation for the select board. The committee has identified specific areas and data that need further exploration to fill the gaps. Obtaining this information is crucial to ensure a responsible recommendation is made. Problem number 1, outdated FEMA mapping and inconsistencies. Multiple experts have pointed out that the FEMA mapping used for the modeling in the D&K study is outdated because of concerns about the accuracy and reliability of the data in our current town studies. The committee has identified inconsistencies in data collection and model calibration, further undermining confidence in these studies. During our recent meeting, Roy Schiff, the engineer who submitted the proposal from SLR, emphasized the need for updated data. It is crucial to address these issues and ensure that any future recommendations are based on the most accurate and up-to-date information available. Second issue, long-term change of rivers during unsteady flows. The committee is interested in studying the long-term changes in rivers during unsteady flows, especially for people living or owning businesses downstream. However, this information has not been included in any existing town study or data. Understanding the behavior of rivers during unsteady flows is crucial in developing effective flood management strategies. Third, water flow attenuation at the Utley and West Rivers junction. The committee needs more information about how the water flow is affected at the junction of the Utley Brook and West Rivers. This particular data is crucial in understanding the dynamics of the rivers in the area and developing appropriate flood mitigation measures. Therefore, it is important to clarify the water flow attenuation at this specific location. Fourth, expanding the scope of flooding studies. The committee has decided it would be beneficial to widen the scope of the study on flooding to include the Marketplace Plaza and other areas upstream that have not been covered in the previous studies. By doing so, the committee aims to gain a comprehensive understanding of the flood risks in these areas and create effective strategies to mitigate them. It is crucial to gather data and information from these previously unexplored locations to ensure a thorough assessment of the flooding situation. Fifth, fire safety in the North Village. The committee has been struggling to find a viable solution for a dry hydrant that ensures fire safety for the residents of North Village, especially during the winter season. It is crucial to have a reliable and accessible source of water to combat fire outbreaks and protect the North Village community. However, identifying a suitable solution has been a challenge due to the specific requirements and accessibility issues during winter and the consistency of the mill pond. Therefore, further exploration and consideration of various options are necessary to address this issue effectively and provide a safe and secure environment. With this in mind, the committee is asking the Select Board to approve this proposal from SLR while at the same time extending the committee deadline until after the study is finished on or about March 31st of next year. That's it.
Thank you. And are you guys gonna keep meeting, or are you gonna be on hiatus until the study is complete?
I believe that there's a couple issues that still can be discussed, but for the most part, there's not a lot we can do until the report is in.
Thank you.
I would say, I don't think the committee should be completely dissolved unless that would be a requirement to get the
No, I
extension.
think they were just gonna be on hiatus until the report was
Right.
done, and they had something to act on, I believe.
Yeah.
If it goes on hiatus, we still get paid?
Yes.
You guys get
Same
paid?
amount.
Same
Exact, exact same
Actually, twice as
amount.
much.
I mean, I sat in on the meeting with Roy Schiff, and it was pretty impressive to have a different view. And if you all look through your packet, you'll notice, and it kind of took me by surprise at first until I actually talked with him, that most of the experience from SLR is about removals. So it was really interesting to have a conversation with him, and he was in tune with hearing the committee and their concerns, and possibly modifying the scope a little bit in order to stay within that budget, but to make sure that we're able to get the information that we're looking for, so that that committee can then make a recommendation to us.
Does that mean that they're predisposed to removals?
No, it's just that was what most of their experience
Right.
was. I mean, and you'll notice they were involved with the removal in Manchester, which I think gets talked about often when you're trying to get an idea of what our river might look like if the dam isn't there. So it's just, read through the
I did,
presentation. It's really interesting, and I think it's a nice, it could be a nice complement to really answering those questions that everyone has pointed out that they felt haven't been answered yet.
SLR was also involved in the Melrose Terrace project, which was the project that some of us went down to West Brattleboro to look at recently. They were the engineering firm that helped them figure out what buildings to take down and where to remove fill and plant trees and all of it. So there are a couple of really good examples that people can go see in real life as to what the outcomes of their work is.
I believe they've worked with the Connecticut River Conservancy on quite a few of those projects listed in there.
I think you are correct, Tom.
Well, I don't have a problem extending the date. If that's what's before us.
I think it makes sense to allow the committee to do what they intend to do, and that's the timeline, so. Makes sense to me as well.
I was just thinking, in order not to have to do this again, if the study comes in late, not on time, let's just say until the study is concluded and they can make a conclusion.
Is that acceptable to not have an end date?
Or do we just say,
you
instead of
wanna do.
March, we could just say May?
Yeah,
Or
you can do that too.
if you wanted to have an end date,
Yeah,
you
give
could
them a
just
little extra
go
time.
further.
Works for me.
May
Yeah, I would
31st.
have a date, but give it as much room as you can.
I would prefer to have a date. I mean, I'm a non-voting member of this committee, but
Yep.
I think to have a deadline, it sort of keeps things moving along.
Right.
But if it's a generous one, that's always a good thing.
Because
Give an
things
extra,
happen.
give an extra month.
So it was March 31st? Was that the
March
correct?
The
24th.
study is proposed to be done the first or second week in March, so.
Right,
Then
so.
we would need time to review the report and discuss it and make a recommendation to the board.
I'd almost say the end of May to,
No,
that gives,
May
that
31st?
gives about 2 months.
yeah, I don't know if it has to be on a specific date, but
Do you think that's too much time, Paul?
April
I mean,
15th.
Sometimes it's nice
like
to
pulling a
have
rabbit out of a
closer
hat.
deadline to force you to
Mhm.
address an issue and resolve it. Sometimes if you have a lot of times, like having a lot of closets, you know, they somehow get filled up anyway.
Mhm.
But I'll defer to the board's recommendation. I'll be here regardless of whatever's happening with the Williams Dam Committee, so.
Let's give them to our second select board meeting in April, so the 15th.
April
Okay.
15th.
That'll give them about a month or so,
That's
probably.
always a fun date.
Yeah.
Don't forget it.
It's not just for taxes anymore.
April 15th?
Yeah, that'll be our second select board meeting in April.
Which is roughly a month beyond the
Mm-hmm.
proposed study completion.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good. Anyone care to make that motion?
I move to amend the charge given to the Williams Dam Advisory Committee, originally approved by the Select Board on April 3rd, 2023, to allow for the deadline for providing a recommended course of action with regard to alternatives to the dam to be extended to April 15th, 2024.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And 8B is Williams Dam Advisory Committee. Consider award of contract for flooding analysis.
Also, just note that this is the only firm they put in for.
I think we've, yeah.
It might be worth mentioning, just in regard to the letter from the committee about looking at other parts of the West River and tributaries and things, that there are other efforts trying to be organized around that will also include Weston and Jamaica, and so rather than there being duplication of efforts, that there be some organized thinking about that and who's doing it and streamlining some of that work so that there's not two groups of people, let's say, emailing the people who are helping with that effort.
Yeah. And we meant to put something down about, talking about the Weston and everything, but didn't make it into the agenda, so I'll just mention it now. I've reached out to the town of Weston and Jamaica to hopefully appoint 2 of their board members each to come meet with us, so we can, I'm thinking the first thing to do is draft a letter to the state, send it out to everyone saying we need mitigation from the whole watershed. And if anybody else would care to join that meeting whenever it does happen, that'd be great. And about Utley Brook and the West River, I have a call into Scott Jensen, the river engineer, about, I sent him a study that I found online, that if you shorten the angle lessen the angle of where those two rivers come in, it can reduce the backwater by up to 54%. So the state's, he's gonna bounce that off other river engineers and get back to me.
He's out of town this week.
That's really long.
Yeah, that's probably nothing that's gonna happen anytime soon.
Yeah, that's,
Long-term, complicated.
yes.
You know, going after funding and professional expertise and having it be an organized effort and not a disparate one would be really helpful.
Just so the select board should know, even if the recommendation was to remove the dam and the select board agreed with that, or the town, however that works, that's a minimum 3 to 5 year project till from the approval date till the dam is done and the work is remediated there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that happens quickly.
No.
No.
Is there any word of this same company working on behalf of Jamaica or Weston? As far as like that consistency goes?
It didn't come up in conversation. I think if they were, they probably would have mentioned it.
I think.
I'd
we're
like to
probably
think so
ahead of the
because we
curve
did
on
talk about Weston and just the flow, where the water comes from. So when we were talking to Roy, there was a discussion of how far up river were you going to go and how far down river were you going to go. So that would have been the time that I'm sure he would have mentioned if he was
Yeah, I
working
don't
with Weston or
believe either of
Jamaica.
those towns have gotten to a place where they're
No.
looking to hire engineers, and the organized effort of all 3 towns is pretty new, so I don't.
And recall the meeting that we had with some of those state officials. Alyssa from, I think it was a Zoom conference, but Alyssa from the Wyndham Regional Commission was going to look at this from a watershed point of view.
Yes.
So it sort of felt like that was happening from that
Right.
altitude.
That community assistance
Yes, yes.
resource something group.
Yes.
And the state's just about done with a river corridor assessment for West River, which should be finalized by next summer. They've done the 2 or 3 years worth of studying. Now they just have to put it all together.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that SLR can have access to some of that
For heaven's sake.
early information. I know it's not going to be, you know, blessed and packaged and pretty, but it seemed, Roy's concern seemed to be that the information from FEMA was very dated and it was very generic. It was not specific to our area, which is common.
Yeah.
So some of these studies that we've seen before us are based on some very generalized information.
Yeah, and FEMA might not be done with it, but last summer they were redoing the floodplain mapping.
Yeah, they're not even close to being done with that, I don't think. But we might be able to help get some of that more up-to-date information that the state does have access to.
I think that
I can help try to see if there's a.
I mean, what kind of when you talk about consolidating our efforts, it doesn't sound like Weston and Jamaica are mobile yet or have mobilized yet.
I think that's what Tom
They're having
is.
conversations.
So Tom, you've reached out to them, so, I mean, I'm happy to help any way that I can.
I simply reached out just seeing if they would be amenable to coming together and trying to get the state to do a mitigation effort for all 3 of our towns. They seem to be, they're gonna talk about it.
And I guess that it's just making sure that some of the work that we've started with our dam committee, that they're aware that we have this group working.
Right, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Yes.
And the potential for there to be a joint effort.
Yes.
And we are much further along in studies and thinking and planning than.
Right.
So.
And that's what I was thinking too, was that if we do contract with this particular company, we should share that information to help unify the attack.
And Wyndham Regional's been made aware of the effort to connect Jamaica, Weston, Londonderry, and they're all on board for that, and they think it's one hell of an idea.
Where does the Army Corps get involved? Because they end up being literally the dam, into which all this flows. So you'd think that they would be an interested partner in the conversation.
They're not just the
They were
dam.
on that Zoom call with the community assistance group.
Were they on that?
They were.
Yeah, okay.
We've
And,
talked to some too in person.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
they
yep,
need to
and
be a
so
player.
they're aware.
Yeah.
And, willing to be a resource that's in the conversation.
Yeah.
I anticipate there being some legislation around trying to make some of those cooperative relationships
That'd be
with
smart, yeah.
Great.
FEMA and Army Corps maybe a little more solidified.
Yeah.
Vermont Army Corps is easy to work with.
No.
Yeah.
And if
You
we
know
get-
what they're saying is, I love this, it's called let's try. It's a French word, l'essayan, and it's a marvelous way of saying, well, we'll try to figure it out, we'll figure out. So, I think they're a great group.
So, do we want to accept this proposal?
It's within the budget by a few dollars.
Well, and if there's, the photo sends and things like that, like we're not, the group, the committee, as they discussed, we're not certain that that was necessary. So it might not be as close as $5. It might actually be less.
Right. That's it, Jazz.
Move it.
Yes, they think they could do
Well, can I ask a question? Will there be a revised scope of work that comes out of this?
There's a couple things we might trade off, if you will. Some things that Roy thought were a luxury, and that there are other things that were more necessities that we didn't have in our original scope. That's the first one of these we ever wrote.
Yeah.
And so he made a couple suggestions, but the feeling was they would still come in under the number. Would we need to come back to the board if we took off item 14C and added item 22B instead, as long as it came in under the contract price?
Yeah, just that whatever contract we have, we would normally include the scope of work.
Okay.
And so it doesn't have to, the contract doesn't have to happen until that's put together. There's no need to. If the board authorizes a contract, we'll just work it out. My sense is as long as it's not more than the budget, it'll be all square.
Yep.
It won't be more.
Can't be, that's all they got.
That's right.
$2, that's it.
That's it.
Anyone can make a motion.
I don't know if it's inappropriate for me to make it, but I move to accept the proposal from SLR International Corporation for flooding analysis engineering services related to the Williams Dam, and to authorize the town administrator to execute any documents necessary for hiring of the firm to provide the necessary services.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Paul. Moving on to item 9, transfer station solid waste management. 9A is updates. I don't have any updates myself, do you?
I do. I just wanted to report that October 7th hazardous waste collection in the rain attracted 100 cars. So it was a good collection, probably an expensive collection, but a good collection considering the number of cars that came. And I wanted to let you know, I emailed this to Tina, that as of January 1st, 2024, 4-foot fluorescent light bulbs will no longer be sold in the state, as well as the twist CFLs. And the ones that are already in the state can still be recycled until they're all run through the program, because there is a EPR program for those bulbs, meaning that they can be disposed of for free. And I did bring this, you might want to include it in something, Shane. Or do you want me to email it to you?
Yeah, that's
Okay, that's better. The other thing is, that we have had a rat problem at the transfer station.
That's what I meant to
The
update.
rats ate through the wire in the compactor, so it needed to be fixed because it wouldn't work without the electrical connections. So I contacted Vermont Pest Control, who came on Thursday, and they have come up with a contract, I guess, of initial cost of $520, which would cover November and December. So they're proposing that they set 10 traps and rebait them every month. So there's a monthly charge of $200 and the initial equipment that they lay out of $270 for $520. And I don't think I need to come to the board to okay that because of the amount of money, but I think you should be aware of what was going on there at the transfer station.
We believe it's from the river and the flooding.
Are they gonna bait them with poison, or are they?
I don't know. That's a good question, and I will ask and get back to you.
Because I don't like that idea. Because then something typically will eat the rat that has the poison.
Yeah, I don't know, I'll find out and get back to you. But what the folks said was that if we don't do the monthly, it'll happen again, obviously, but the monthly rebating will keep the population down, but you'll actually never get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
We've always had some there, but if you go over to Steve's office now and you look at the bank behind, it's just holes. It's crazy. And it could be because of the flooding displaced a lot of rats by the river up. I don't know, but it's bad.
So I'll get back to you about what they're reading.
Yeah, just,
Okay. So I think that's all I have for the updates. I have something for the next thing on the agenda.
All right, we'll move to 9B, review bids and award contract for transfer station winter maintenance. It's a little high priced.
So can I speak to that?
Mm.
So the one response to the RFP that came in was from I'm gonna call them a company, was more than twice as much as the amount for the previous years. So going from $6,500 to $15,000, that's quite a big jump. So I think, Shane, correct me on this, I think that the RFP was, or the note about the RFP was put in newspapers and Front Porch Forum and that kind of stuff.
Didn't make the news because the time frame is so short that we put it in front. I put it in Front Porch Forum. Did you put it on the?
I put it on the community forum.
Community forum. We posted it. Post offices.
So I was thinking that it might be.
I did send it to the former vendor.
You did send it to.
He doesn't want to do it.
Okay.
He's done.
So.
I sent it to Wise Oak in Lancaster. I didn't send it to Homestead because they do all of Stratton. They're probably not going to bid. Shaves might have been a good one to send to. I didn't think about that, but.
I'm sorry. So Homestead would not be interested, you're saying?
I have a good bet that Homestead would not be interested. They do most everything on Stratton.
Stratton.
So I don't think you're gonna get them to come to the transfer station.
So I was wondering if it might be beneficial to send the RFP to Shaves and to Wise Oak.
Wise Oak got it.
I'm sorry?
I sent it to Wise Oak. They didn't bid.
No, and Hunter?
Drive,
I didn't
get it?
Yeah, he doesn't wanna do it.
Alberta.
Oh, Birdie, I didn't send it to.
Maybe he's interested. He's a new kid on the block, so he might.
No.
So you suggested
on it one other time, right?
reissue.
Yeah. The problem here though is if we reissue, I mean, we got possible storm this week.
No way.
Yes.
Rain and ice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on Thursday morning.
We got rain and ice coming this week.
Still work
I
to do.
did see it was mostly rain,
So
maybe.
that's the only problem I see with this is
So
we're getting into the weeds. I know the
Is
prices
it
are crazy
impossible for
though.
our road crew to do that, or does it just not make sense?
It doesn't make sense because
Okay.
in a
Timing
big
wise,
storm,
everybody
they're-
needs it at
they're
the
on
same
the
They're on
roads.
the road, okay.
They're not,
I get
yeah.
Did, Dana Griswold had bid on it one
He
other
didn't bid
time,
on
but
it.
he wasn't
He
interested.
talked about it one other time, but.
I wonder if he would be interested in a pinch if we needed him once,
Yeah.
before.
I'm sorry, Hunter said he would be,
Oh, no, I was saying Dana Griswold.
okay.
If we put it back out to bid and we got snow, maybe Dana could take care of us once, or until we get a
The
contractor.
problem where you're gonna have is, there's been at least 3 or 4 snowplow companies that have quit. They're done. They gave up their driveways and there's companies are stretched thin right now, all of them in this town and surrounding towns.
So, Tom, you said that you talked to Wise Lake and they said no.
They didn't say no, they just didn't put in a bid. I emailed it to them.
You emailed it to them?
Yep.
Okay. And you think Homestead is out and Hart's out, right?
Hart is out, Dryden is out.
What about Shaves?
Homestead, I assume, probably couldn't do it. They got a lot of houses already. Shaves, I didn't even think about, because they don't have that many people to plow for them, I don't think.
Dave, you said?
Yeah, I think they only do a limited amount of plowing.
I think it's worth sending it out though, because the response was so much higher than what we've done in the past.
How about Bear Paw, or do they do winter
You're
stuff?
not,
Okay.
I figured
I don't
landscape,
even know if they're in business.
I figure everything in Winhall is going to
Steve
Stratton.
Jamie sold it, so.
I got it to most of the people I thought would even take it.
So if we get a storm on Wednesday, we currently don't have anyone.
No,
Is that correct? Or,
that's correct.
Well, yeah, I would find somebody that you could call on and pinch, and then put it back out.
I mean, Dwayne might do it in a pinch for us, but he does not want the contract again.
but he might do it one time out of the kindness of his heart, why we sent this
Did
back
anybody
out.
send it to Chris Langley?
No,
To Chris?
Chris Langley? He does plowing, he took over Stone Hollow from Dwayne.
Do you have contact information?
I can get it.
Yeah. So I think it's worth doing that at least, and then going from there.
So put it out to bid and have them do, like, say, next Thursday, do one of these Thursday meetings.
It's
That'll be,
becoming a regular thing.
that'll be on you guys though, because I won't be here.
Yeah.
I'm gone next
We
week,
just have to make sure Jim will be
and
here.
I'm not coming out of the woods.
Or do we
Here,
try-
day one.
Do we try to find somebody for 2 weeks and just put it on the next meeting?
Yeah,
Find an interim plow guy for,
right, give you permission to,
We might get Alex or Dana or.
So a direct mail?
I mean, it was a short one, because it was, kinda got lost in all the flooding work that we forgot about.
Is there
That
any way,
contract, but-
we've got somebody who does the parks. Is there any way that in the future it can be all of the town?
You could,
that
but
might,
you
it
might
might
scare away
limit you a
some
little
bidders
bit
too.
because some businesses focus on different seasons
Areas,
more so.
seasons?
I mean, not to say they all do, I mean,
Right.
but there might be limiting.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of a
Somebody who was
one-stop
just
shop.
interested in doing mowing
Right.
might not want to have the
No.
equipment to plow.
Right,
Right.
I'm oversimplifying it.
well, the reality may be that we don't get anybody for less than 15,000. I mean, that may be, I mean, I agree, but that may be the reality.
It just seems a little insane that it's double the amount.
More than double.
Would we,
Yeah.
Almost triple.
would we hang on to this as a consideration in the event that we don't get anything better the next time?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
Well, he may say no. He may get some other bid, and he has limited space.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've heard at least 4 plow companies who just shut down this year. Said, we're
Yeah.
done. And I know other people are saying, I can't take another driveway. Sorry.
No, that's true.
I know guys that had like, 50 or 60 driveways now have over 300 to try to fill the gap. And no new employees either. So I don't know, that doesn't even equate. So you get somebody that charges this much, you might be able to draw in some help to get it done, but you just can't find any help.
It's the roll of the dice if we go for another one. If he doesn't put back in for a bid, or I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do.
I think it's worth rolling the dice in that sense, but.
I use Gid driving if that helps. I don't know if he takes that big a job or not, or if he's already booked out.
Yeah.
And do we want to put it out, right now it's a lump sum per year. Do you want to try it per storm? Another way to do that.
With a commitment though, for the season.
Well, yeah.
For 3, it wasn't like a 3-year.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a 3-year. And we don't have to do it 3 years necessarily. Maybe someone doesn't want to get locked in for 3 years, but at the same time, you can always, either party can terminate.
I think we put it out to bid before we did the 3-year for 1 year or the 3-year.
We did.
So we could do that.
About Don Hazelton too. If he might be interested in bidding on it.
So, you're gonna send them out again? Do you want me to help, or?
I can. I'm out of the office Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They can try to bang it out tomorrow. I mean, it's all done. Yeah, if you're around tomorrow, it would help me if we could,
Yeah.
figure out timelines and whatnot.
Okay. You said Chris who?
Langley.
Langley.
He lives right near the transfer station.
And he has a plow.
Yes. So,
Bruce has another question?
Just, well, I'm thinking if you're looking for people, there's Gary Grout too, he's even got a tractor. Might be interested.
We got that new backhoe.
I know, you've got the equipment.
Throw something on there.
I know, just need a sander.
You'd have to get a snow blade on it, and yeah, you'd have to get someone to come sand it, because we don't have anything to sand it.
How much does all that stuff cost?
The snow blade, you probably,
More than 15,850?
no, you're probably pretty close to that, I bet, for the snow blade.
Minus somebody to run it.
Right.
Yeah, the problem is, we only
Yeah,
got
have
2
the-
guys at the transfer station
Right.
too.
Well, I would pursue that just as a line of conversation, see if anybody,
Maybe we could spend $15,000 on an extra employee to
Throw sand.
shovel and plow.
Well, that's what it pushes you to consider when the number gets that high.
Yeah.
right.
You have to think outside a little bit because you could own the equipment to do it in pretty short order.
Yeah.
Not that anybody wants to get in the plow business, apparently. Nobody wants plow business anymore, but.
Anyone can make a motion.
Well, it's the I move to re-advertise, correct?
That's what you wanna do, yeah?
Is that what we're suggesting?
One or the other.
Well, maybe can we change this? Pick number 2, which is the I move to re-advertise, but also to say to find somebody to be on call for the next 2 weeks while we're still waiting. Is
And
that-
a direct mail to some of these other places that were identified?
I don't think you need to include that, we'll just do it.
I'm
Just
sorry, what?
call
don't
that
mean that's-
re-advertising. I mean, you would just
Yeah,
re-advertise
that falls
or,
under-
Okay.
are people
But I
okay with
support
that?
the adding the Plan B.
Interim.
And interim.
Yeah.
All right. Do you need me to say that, Shane?
Shane, I will come by tomorrow to chat with you about it.
So I move to re-advertise the invitation to bid for transfer station winter maintenance, and in the interim to have the town identify somebody to cover us for the intervening weeks before that new contract is awarded.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I have something. So if you do find somebody for the interim, you have to go by whatever they would charge for plow?
For that period of time until we have a contract.
And when do you want the bids due?
When's our next meeting?
If we find an interim
Yeah,
person,
next
it
Monday
seems
and
like we
Monday after.
should be able to get through 2 weeks, but
So that would be November 20th?
Yeah.
End of day, whatever that is, the 20th.
So you have it on due the Thursday before the Monday meeting. I won't-
Thursday before?
I'm not gonna have time, I don't think, to make phone calls to get an interim.
that would be
I could
the,
do that.
that would be the 16th, right? November 16th. So it's less than 2 weeks.
I suggest reaching out to Lancaster and letting them know that we are gonna re-advertise the bid if he wants to put it back in.
If he wants to resubmit, you're saying?
We'll have to send them a note tomorrow. The board did not vote to accept the bid. And we're gonna reissue, we'll just give them full notice.
Accept your bid saying that the board hasn't decided on a bid.
Just say the board decided that the bid process wasn't long enough and we
Extending
put
the
it, we
deadline.
extended it.
Yeah, instead of, saying we're not accepting your bid because.
We're just saying the board's reissuing the invitation to bid.
But
That's all you need to say.
Yeah, I just didn't want him to be shut out in case he's the
Right.
only game in town, right?
We invite you to submit a proposal.
Alright, moving on to item 10, roads and bridges. 10A, updates and storm recovery.
Some paving going on.
I was wondering if, with Cynthia here, do we want to adjust the agenda to deal with that now?
Fair
So
enough.
she can go home? Is that,
Lovely.
Sure.
What item
My
is
husband
that?
would appreciate it.
That's
That's
11B.
is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll move up 11B to now. And review and discuss governmental operations and structure audit study.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come tonight, and it's nice to see everybody in person. I've talked to everybody on the phone, I think. Tom, I saw you here. What our 15-minute conversations that I said it would take sometimes took maybe an hour. There was a fifth board member that's not here tonight. We had such a lively conversation, him and I. It was a lot of fun to talk to. So, I really appreciated all the time everybody put into it. This was something that we were asked to do that's fairly new it is new for Limerick. We have not done one of these before, so you guys were kind of our first. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I know I said it to some of you on the phone. I worked for Limerick I've worked for municipalities for 27 years now, but I've worked for Limerick since 1997 was the year before my daughter was born. So that's when I started in all of this. I was an elected town treasurer when I first started with municipalities. I then left, worked for Limerick for a while as a support person, answering the phones, working with people. I don't know, Tina, when we met. Probably back very early.
2002.
Yeah. And then left for a short period of time, went to be town manager in Putney for 5 years, and then when I decided I was done with that, I came back to Limerick, so that's where I've been since. So I've run the gamut of working in municipal offices. So my position right now brings me all over the state of Vermont, consulting mostly in the financial role with towns Most of the time, I'm going into towns now when they have, a town treasurer has retired, left, a finance director has left, just filling in the gap for them while they don't have the capacity to do that job, while they're trying to find somebody, they get somebody new elected, that kind of thing. Chip Stearns, who was also the other person that worked on this with us, he has similar experience that I do, has worked for Nimerick for over 20-something years. He was also a finance director, he was a town manager in Rockingham, and then Ernie, who's owned the company for, I don't know if any of you have met Ernie, but owned the company for, I think we're up to 37 years now. So we have a lot of experience working throughout the state of Vermont in municipalities. We have seen the changes that are happening in individual offices, in individual towns. The one thing that I can say about Nimerick is that every one of us has a love for Vermont municipal government. Local control is a big, we are huge advocates for. We love the way local democracy works. And so I just wanted to give you that little bit of background. Then my personal background is pretty much Londonderry is my high school stomping grounds, I guess I could say. I have family here. My Uncle Senator owned the gas station in the middle of the town. My grandparents lived in Wyndham. They were the Stolls of Wyndham. So I've lived in this area my entire life. So I'm used to the area. I know a lot of people here, and but my background in municipal government is really what brings us to the point where I feel like Nimerick is probably one of the best suited organizations in the state of Vermont to take a look at a town and look at their structure and see what they're doing really well and offer some changes. And ultimately what I want to make sure everybody knows is that we know that the ultimate decision comes from the voters. How they want their town to run, what they want the structure of their government to look like is ultimately up to them, and we would really have it no other way. That's how we want to keep it, and that's so with all that being said, I think you all got a copy of the report, and I'll just highlight a couple things in the beginning, and then I'm just going to open it up to questions and see what you guys have for questions, and see where we go from there. So one thing that I really want to highlight is, and like I said, I've been working all over the state of Vermont, and I have to tell you, it's been a little bit scary for me, the changes that I've been seeing. A lot of fighting within towns, very unruly board meetings, lots of turnover with very little capacity for qualified people applying for positions, towns that are having people not wanting to run for positions. And what has been really nice about this project is that's not what's happening here. I feel, and I think Ernie said it in the beginning, is that, you know, Londonderry should be really proud of your current organizational structure. One of the questions that I asked everybody that I interviewed that would talk to me about it was, how do you feel the communication is in town, you know, between citizens, between committees, between board members, between staff? I had very positive feedback about that. That's one of the areas that I hear a lot of negative feedback throughout the state, is that communication is not great. There's always going to be some communication problems. You're working with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. It was all very positive. Your use of local agreements between towns, like the new rec director position that you're creating, the transfer station and having other towns pay towards that. Just that whole openness to that type of structure is, you guys are way ahead of the curve with that. I'm seeing it a little bit around the state, but not a ton, and so you guys are ahead of the curve on that. Very thorough documentation as far as job descriptions. There was one little area Ernie mentioned in here with a couple of exceptions. I asked him what the exception was today, and he said it was the hired assessor versus lister role. And I think that if you were to even ask them, that was kind of the sense I got from the assessor and the listers. There was kind of we just need to clarify those roles a little bit. That was feedback that we got from them. So the general recommendations, one of the things that I didn't see was including employee benefits. There was talk about, you know, it's really hard to entice people to work for a lot of organizations, not just municipalities. And one of the things that was pretty impressive is the benefits package that you offer your employees. And we noticed that that was not put like on a pay stub, like on my pay stub, it tells how much my boss pays for health insurance and that kind of thing. Just as a way for people to understand that it's more than just the hourly rate that they're getting, you know, just to show that information. He put on here increased availability of financial and other information on your web page. I asked him about that, and he was just talking about just general balance sheets, monthly reports, and just keeping that transparency out there. A capital plan should be developed, and that was something that I think that there was a plan for roads and culverts.
Yes, paved roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the more in-depth capital plan with buildings, equipment, that kind of thing.
Oh, we have an equipment plan too, somewhere.
Okay,
We do
I
have
can see
an
that,
equipment plan,
okay. And then just reviewing procedures on replacement and continuity of staff and how that looks, and looking a few years out to see who's looking to retire, when, and what does that replacement look like, just an ongoing look at that. So then, I don't know, there were one thing I did want to just mention before we get into each recommended staffing things that Ernie talked about, that under the shared, number 7, add a shared grant writer. There was this, it says in here that Londonderry already uses this approach with zoning administrator. That really should have been a recycling coordinator. The zoning administrator is not a shared contract, I understand. It's the person works maybe in different towns.
He's a part-time
Yeah.
employee in a number of
Yeah.
towns.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit, that needed some clarification. So, I don't know if you want me to go through each of these, or if you would prefer to just ask questions. It's up to you. Do you have specific questions? And then I can...
You mentioned social media policy, and I think maybe when we were talking, we talked about this, but are there best practices that other communities have put in place to address communication via social media or by electronic notification that you would recommend we look at?
Yeah, we looked into it a little bit. When we looked, the social media policies that we found were extensive. Like, they were almost too much.
It was probably more about your own personal emails versus your work emails, that sort of stuff. But I'm thinking more on we tend to use Facebook, Londonderry Community Forum, as kind of our mouthpiece, which to me feels odd, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a specific one. The league has a model policy, the LCT does, which for some reason right now you can't get to. So I was trying to look at that and I couldn't see it. But I think that a lot of towns are wrestling with this. It's one of the things that I hear when I go out and about is, on Facebook I saw this and on Facebook I saw that, and to try to refrain from, especially when you're on the board and really what's going on, the backstory to a lot of it, it's really hard sometimes to refrain from commenting on that post. But as a board member, you cannot comment. You're one person on a 5-member board. So unless you're really saying I'm speaking for myself, and not as a representative of the town, but having that in some type of written formal policy is what's needed so that everybody understands that when you sit down at the table. You know, and as a new board member, they should be given that, and this is the policy that we abide by. And but as far as having a sample one, I don't have one. It's something that, you know, I think it's fairly new, and I think it's one of those policies that you end up with a lot of questions before you have answers and need some real input from somebody that I think Vermont is wrestling, probably a lot of smaller states are too, but wrestling with what that language looks like. And then what is the repercussions if it's not followed? You know, that's the other thing. So it sounds like a really good topic for the league to dig into. And really help towns with that. Do you want me to go through each point? It's up to you guys.
I don't need it.
No.
Yeah. Was there anything in there that really struck you as not? I mean, like I said, this is obviously this isn't something you have to make a decision on. Most of the points in here are things that the town is going to make the decision on. If the board, you know, if you see there's a point in time when one of these suggestions seems like that's the way the town needs to go, or that there's an issue, you know, you guys are really fortunate with the number of people in your town that are really very involved, and that's what's making it work really well right now. Unfortunately, if one of those legs, you know, you lose a couple of board members that are super active, or you lose, you know, a really amazing town treasurer that, you know, really has the capacity for doing the job, or it can quickly not be a great situation, which is what we're seeing in a lot of towns right now. And replacing people is really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the rest of what you guys have been talking about tonight. Finding people to live here, and you know, it's a whole snowball effect. Yeah. So.
Can I suggest among our select board members that we find a way to talk about this among ourselves in an executive session at some point and just sort of deliberate about?
I don't know if that qualifies for executive.
I don't think you can.
You can't? To just sort of process?
I don't see where it would qualify.
Yeah. If you were going to talk about evaluation of an individual employee, then you could be doing that. But if you're talking about staffing, if you're talking about organizational structure, it would not qualify for an executive session.
Okay.
I don't see how.
No.
I said neither, but I'm not an attorney, so I have no idea. I would say no. Like I said, it's ultimately up to the voters, so anything that, you know.
So maybe discuss it at another meeting sometime, or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good information here that is, you know, the purpose in pursuing this opportunity with Nimerick was to kind of get an outside look at what goes on here. Sometimes from the inside out, it doesn't look the same. So I think it's a helpful tool for us to be able to evaluate, you know, ourselves and our structure. So.
Well, and I think it's always good to always understand what the alternatives are to what you have now. And it's always good to understand that what you have now is working. And if that's what's working, then there's no need to change anything. But if you see, this kind of gives you an idea of things that you could see, because based on what we have been seeing. You know, I can think of a small town I've been working in really closely, and they ended up voting to approve an appointed clerk and treasurer instead of elected, which I had no idea that was even going on, and they did it. And they did that because they were not finding people in town that wanted to run for those positions. But they didn't decide to do that until it got to the point where they really were without somebody for months, and then had to call us in, and I worked in there for a year, and you know, that cost the town a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're not cheap. Our goal is always to work ourselves out of a job when we go in. We want to leave it in a place where the town can take over, and as a matter of fact, I'm done there. But because they decided to appoint their treasurer instead of elect, they were able to go outside the town and found somebody that was extremely qualified for the position, or clerk, I mean, it was a clerk position. And they've now found somebody that's going to be the treasurer when the person that took over leaves in March. So looking at this before things, just understanding what could happen. Doesn't mean you have to do it now, doesn't mean you have to do it 3 years from now. But, I mean, I know I won't retire sometime. I know Shane probably, maybe he won't do. I know Tina, I mean, we all are
9 years.
Yeah, so, you know, 9 years seems like a long ways away, but I'll tell you what, she's gonna be hard to replace.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean there's not someone in Londonderry that's completely qualified, that's gonna be able to replace her easily and wants to run and be elected to that position. And then you're fine, but it's very rare right now, is as what I know from my experience.
It's a tough thing to manage because of the fact that you don't really see other faces until you have an empty seat. So waiting until then is like a total gamble, because it's like nobody's going to step up. When you have somebody great, nobody's going to try to get that
Right,
job.
they're gonna run against her.
Right,
Yeah.
and if, you know, in the situation where you kind of hope there's somebody out there, but you don't really know until the seat is empty, is risky. For sure.
I have to tell you, when I got this from Ernie, because like I did the interviewing, you know, I had a great time with it. I thought we all had great conversations, but I was really shocked to see what Ernie wrote about the treasurer position, because that is a major shift in his thinking. He is a huge proponent of horizontal structure. He wants to see the checks and balances in place. And I can tell you, probably back when I was in Putney, if anybody followed that story, that is when I changed my position on having it be a hired or appointed position instead of elected, because I was an elected treasurer. And him and I would debate about it. He was like, oh, I don't know, Cynthia, that's traveling into some territory. And he's changed it because of the change in the skill level needed to do that position. And it's not it's not just keeping track of a checkbook. And like I said, you guys are lucky. You're in a good position right now with the personnel that you have. But boy, it can easily turn the other way. And then sometimes you get, you know, somebody through a popularity contest in it. They don't know how to keep track of. It's not QuickBooks. I can tell you, doing this work is not QuickBooks.
No.
So.
Well,
So that was a major shift in Ernie's, and that was hard for him to recommend that, because it's a major shift.
I mean, can we take these bulleted items, however many there are, 7 or whatever? Some of these are, yep, let's do it, yep, let's do it. They're not controversial, and yes, it may take some time to put them in place, but rather than let this sort of sit on the shelf and get dusty, which tends to happen with consultants' reports, I think we need to go through these and just sort of say, yeah, these are doable, this is a good idea, whatever. I mean, they're
Even
not
just to
heavy
have a
lifts. This is
discussion.
not heavy lift.
Adding an additional road crew member has come up before with
Yeah,
no
that
real
was like
action
a-
to it.
Recommended that last year.
Yeah,
We
so I
have
think
to
at
do
some
that.
point we should visit these and sort of make a
Oh.
commitment to it. So I don't want to lose it, that's all I want.
Even if it's a
We paid the money,
discussion,
yeah.
to decide that you don't want to discuss it right now. You know what I mean?
Say that again, please?
Even if it's a discussion, to have a debate of where, taking the temperature of everybody, and no, we don't want to discuss this right now. We don't feel like this is a necessary, but we understand the reasons for thinking about it.
Put it off or.
I do want to point out one thing though. It was the delinquent tax collector section. I just want to make sure that that isn't, I just want to make sure that I clarify some things. So, and this was kind of a last minute question to you, so I want to make sure we got it right.
Yeah, I don't really get it, I mean, the windfall thing kind of bothered me.
Okay, so, and that's why I want to bring it up, because I just want to make sure that, because we're not suggesting that you got some big windfall out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I do get one big check.
Right,
here.
and so I'm glad I remembered to bring that up, but the windfall that he's talking about in here, we have seen happen in other towns where the delinquent tax collector is an elected collector, most of the time gets the full 8% penalty, which here it's 5%. And I can think of at least 3 towns where what happened was a big entity in town, let's say like a power company, the hydro dam, they forgot to pay their taxes on the due date. For whoever's listening out there, I'm not suggesting that the hydro dam or the electric company didn't pay their taxes on time. I'm using that as an example. It's not a true example, okay? They pay it within a few days because they're like, oh shoot, well they pay the penalty. We've seen a $30,000 penalty come in before where the delinquent tax collector actually did nothing and got that money. That's the type of windfall. I'm not suggesting that happened here. We're just saying that is a potential for a delinquent tax collector that's paid by the penalty. This is a little different situation. She gets 5%, I think it is. Yeah. I mean, I go back to the days of sitting in Kate Merrill's house, trying to help her use a computer to do this work. And God bless her, I just loved her. And her being like, oh, no, that person, no, they didn't need to not pay me. She could do that. It was her 8%, you know, and so that kind of has gone by the wayside. And I worked with Joan for a really long time. And so I'm not suggesting that a delinquent tax collector doesn't do any work. They do. But there is that potential of that.
Even before I was a delinquent tax collector, I was doing a lot of the work.
I'm sure.
Because people called here to yell.
To do it, yes. That's why I always have a component of it being in-house anyways, because we know an elected delinquent tax collector, like Kate, she might have been on the golf course 6 days out of the week, and who's answering the phone is somebody here trying to help them. So for me, having that money come into the town is what's important. But so I just wanted to make that. And also that even if it was to ever to go to a town manager form of government, I believe that the statute defaults that position as the delinquent tax collector. That does not mean that it can't be appointed to somebody else. So, so even if that was to happen, because probably, you know, the treasurer would be the one who would possibly turn the phone about it anyway. So there's different ways to organize that, and that was, I just wanted to clear that and make sure that you guys understood what that was all about.
Why?
Yeah, but like you said, there are some bullet points on here that you could just, I mean, a social media policy, you guys could start on that. I do have to tell you, out of all the discussions I had, that came up with everybody. The uncomfortableness with how social media is being used.
I think we have a particular problem too.
Yeah, that came up with almost everybody I talked with. So clearly that's something that's on everybody's mind. So that might be a good place to start. You know, that's one that you could, the capital plan, like she said, they have an equipment plan. I didn't see the equipment.
It hasn't been updated in a number of years.
I mean, that's something that can be worked on.
Yeah.
And then even just increasing the information that's online, you know.
Yeah, and our benefits administrator or somebody can prepare a once-a-year letter that goes out to the employee that says, here's the value of your benefits. That's an easy.
Yeah, there's actually a way in the system that it can be done, which I'm just gonna talk to you about. The benefits, on the paycheck.
Yeah, I used to, when you had to report them at the end of the year, I used to do it.
I saw that higher.
But, yeah, I might need some help with that.
Yeah, and that's already in there,
Yeah.
that's easy to do, so.
Good.
Yeah, so there's some things that can be done right off, like you said. I mean, I even think that the role of the hired assessor and elected listers, I think just having a conversation with Sandy and Sandra and,
Jeremiah.
I used to work with them, can't remember his name. Jeremiah, they both kind of said that when I talked to them, that there could be some clarity in that, who does what kind of thing. But what was said about the listers and the assessor's office was actually what they said in there to me, that they would like to see elected listers continue as long as they could get volunteers, because it's important to have that background and that base and the people that know the people that live in town, and then a hired assessor with the technical expertise needed to keep values consistent and equal. A lot of good things.
Yeah,
going
thank you.
on. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes,
Pretty much.
thank you.
So we will go back to 10A, update, storm damage and recovery. You wanna kick this one off? Or?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything specific from Josh, but there are.
You were gone, I guess.
What's that?
You were gone for a week. So
Yeah,
I can update it a little more if you want.
yeah, I would say, I mean, basically just the projects that are being worked on and paving and stuff like that you guys all have more timely information on updates.
Yeah, the paving progress, they were trying to be out of here by today. I'm not sure how far they got done. Thompsonburg is done, and they were working on Hell's Peak. I think you said they were working on Little Pond.
Yes, they are.
Repairs have been made to Edge Hill. I don't know if the full top coat is done yet. Cohen Road needs, I'm not sure if that started or not.
Josh said yesterday that
They did the
that
they finished the turnaround, but they did not do the ditching
Okay.
as of yet.
And what else? Barker Road went out to bid to finish the culvert work. Or not Barker Road, Reinhardt.
Right, and they have I think they've signed the contract already.
Other than that, we're almost back to normal. Getting there.
Getting closer. Checking off some big
it's nice not
projects.
to have to avoid the bump on Main Street.
Yeah, that is.
And I don't know. I don't think I have anything else. Shane, do you have any update or anything?
No,
That's about
we've
it.
got them, but yeah, we're close to being done.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Alright. And then we'll move on to 10B, award contract for Edge Hill Road Repairs Project RFP 2023-19.
The board changed that to award contract. Yeah, there's a culvert from Middletown Road to the edge of the falls. And it was crushed at the end. We think it was by virtue of the scouring caused by the dam overflowing. So that it had to be fixed, and we were hoping to just do it with the change order for the Edge Hill Road project, but in speaking with FEMA on Friday, they indicated that it had to be a separate project altogether. To me, it makes no sense, but that's what they're requiring. It's in already, and they're trying to, at Hunter, figure out what the cost was. We supplied the culvert, our folks went and got it, and so it's just gonna be the cost of some material and the install. I don't think it's gonna be a whole lot of money. what I threw in there was less than 500, so basically we don't know what the amount is, but they're working it through right now. And we'll have to trust them on it.
Anyone care to make that motion?
Is it written the way it should be? Doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Well, I think it should be.
yes. I move to accept a proposal from Hunter Excavation, Inc. of less than $5,000 for culvert repair work related to ongoing storm-related roadway repairs on Edge Hill Road, and to authorize the town administrator to execute any documents necessary for the hiring of the contractor to provide the necessary services.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to 10C, access permit 2023-04, Middletown Road, parcel 0620001.000.
I'm not sure if anybody contacted the owners actually in regards to the requested changes. I personally did not.
No, but I think Josh may have tried.
I didn't
The issues is the culvert that they put in without a permit is too small. And so I wouldn't recommend the board approve this, but in case you wanted to, I put together a motion. But yeah, they need to pull it out and put a new one in. I'm sure they're going to be rather unhappy about that.
I would agree with that. I would not approve it until the corrections have been made, and the suggested ones are listed in Josh's writing under the road foreman part, and there's some brush clearing and replacing the culvert with a 15-inch 20-foot length.
Yeah, it's kind of a blind.
It's a very blind spot.
Yeah. So the brush clearing, in addition to replacing the culvert, needs to be done before I would approve it. Either that, or if you don't want to revisit it, you approve it pending those improvements. I don't know.
Maybe better not to.
I would hold off to the next meeting.
Those changes have to be made for sure, so.
We will pass over it until the changes are made.
Do you want me to check in with Josh about contacting them again, or do you want to resend that group email, or?
I think it's you guys. I mean,
Okay, I'll talk to Josh, and one of us will reach out.
Alright, moving on to item 11, old business. 11A, discuss regulation of short-term rentals.
It was taken off.
No, we didn't vote to take it off.
Oh, sorry.
We talked about passing over it until the
Yes,
town
passing
attorney
over here.
Yeah.
could review.
So we had a meeting on 10/23 reviewing the language changes that we reviewed in the previous meeting. Suggestions that came before us. And we're just waiting to hear from Bob on how all of that will shake out for us to get another draft.
Great.
So I guess I would suggest that we put it on the next meeting.
Boyvie said he had more research to do.
Yes.
he said he'd be able to handle it this week.
Perfect.
Not for nothing, but are we losing an opportunity by these time delays in terms of revenue generating by permitting and things like that? This isn't, it's not a
We can
biggie.
budget for it, so.
Kelly does that, yeah.
Kelly said they're gonna
We're
work
meeting
on
on the
that.
16th, so after that, we'll
Oh, after that, it'll be sometime after that. Okay, sure, yeah.
The planning commission usually just submits something to me, I don't, and the DRB is really not a huge deal. It's,
What about emergency management?
he has a $500 budget or a $1,000 budget,
Pretty,
so he doesn't really
pretty
need a whole-
straightforward.
He doesn't qualify. And then listers will do with administration, because all their stuff falls under administration. So they'll just, when we do administration, we'll just do those numbers too.
That pretty much covers those.
So I'll get some updated dates to you. It's coming around fast. We already are feeling the crunch of town meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pressure's on.
what is the
Yeah.
date for that? The 5th? No.
It's the 5th.
March,
And it's,
March
yeah,
And it's a presidential primary year, so.
Woohoo!
hold on
so
to
we
your
have
hats.
2 elections going and town
Three
meeting.
elections go.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
town meeting is an election.
Big day.
Do you have any generalized requests of departments, like level fund or 1% or 10%, whatever it is, or anything along those lines, or budgeted increases for staff? Any thoughts on those?
I kind of was looking at, and the Social Security is recommending 3.2, I think. That's what they're doing.
As
So I'm
opposed
assuming
to,
that's the
Build that
cost of
in.
living increase.
which we had done, 9% was what we
Yeah.
budgeted previously.
Yeah.
But that also comes into effect now under Social Security, and it wouldn't come into effect till July next year.
Yeah. I know we're always lagging, but
Yeah.
there's no other way to do it.
Right. Well, it seems like highway it's always more, but sometimes it's salt and sand, but not tires, or, I don't know how you really,
I think we've gotten a better handle on
we
salt and sand.
closed the gap a little bit,
Yeah.
or quite a bit, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean-
it's never enough.
I mean, you have a year when you use a lot more and they've tripled the price, or,
Well, one thing maybe to consider is if we're talking about a 4th employee, we might want to consider budgeting
yeah.
payroll for another additional road crew member. That would be probably the largest change, other than a normal increase.
Yeah.
Would that go to the voters?
It would have to, right?
Does not have to.
Doesn't
It's
have
just
to.
tradition.
It's been tradition that we separated it out. We did one year and it got voted out of the budget.
This is a personnel position, you mean?
Yeah. It was mainly about who might fill the position than it was about the money, I think.
No.
Well, I also recall that it wasn't just an additional road crew person, it was more of a.
It was more of like a road foreman
Right.
position and leaving the road crew as they were.
Right.
What was it called? Public Works Administrator?
Public Works,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think just to hire another road crew person, I don't think we'd get much resistance on that,
No.
because it's,
Right.
it seems that it's absolutely
Yeah.
necessary, and,
This could also solve some of the getting contracts for transfer station plowing and, mowing and, you've got an extra body.
I did a comparison last year of other towns based upon road mileage maintenance, and we were clearly low. We really should at least 4 in comparison to the towns.
Well, and I think there are 2 approaches. One being, we have 3 people. You fill the top or fill the bottom, and I think if you fill a crew member as opposed to a leader, it's less money, but it's also more work getting done. Like
Yes.
you were saying,
Yes.
if
I mean,
we're spending $15,000 a year, then you can afford a pickup truck with a plow on it and a bed sander to do the transfer station.
Right.
So it's really not it's pulled out as a line item, but it could be a saving,
Yes,
Right,
potentially,
yeah.
right.
or offset.
Potentially,
Right. Or at
and
least
Josh, I mean,
even.
since this storm happened, he hasn't been able to actually do a lot of actual work because he's been doing paperwork
Right.
Right.
and sitting in meetings.
And that's
you know.
more and more common too. So
Yeah.
by design, you adapt to that. I think.
Yeah,
Well, maybe that's the lesson that we should all take going into this budgeting season is,
Times are changing.
yeah, and be creative.
yeah,
Be creative. Don't be afraid if we're doing the right thing.
I think we can't be afraid of saying no to some of the appropriations that come up across the table.
It's
I
gonna
mean,
be
I know
balance
there's a
of
lot of good
everything.
ones, and,
I liked your idea of capping it at a certain amount and that's it.
yeah.
You mean a total
We have this
pool
much-
that gets distributed among?
We have this much to
100,000
give
or
away,
something, that's it.
and
That's
this is
it.
what you're gonna get.
Divide it up however.
Because it just keeps going.
Because I've already had a couple of people who said, how do I ask for an increase?
Well, it's interesting because if we treat it similar to the ARPA money and how that conversation took place on how that money was going to be divided up, I mean, there was only so much money.
Right, the pie
Yeah.
is.
So, I mean, that's an interesting
I
thought.
thought we should have done that for the last like 5 years.
And it's been going up
Yeah.
steadily.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
we're over
interesting.
$100,000 in appropriations, and I think
It's a lot.
that could be spent,
It is a lot, but also remember that many of them are social services agencies that are plugging holes that we can't plug as a government. You know, it's, Girl Scouts, or it's 4-H clubs, or it's something, you name it, but we can't solve those problems. Or whatever my argument was, but you get it.
yeah.
But it requires more thought in the approval process as opposed to just writing a letter and you get the money.
Yeah.
So,
Well, then it requires the board to then make the decision about how
Right.
the pie gets cut.
Yeah, we make
Yes.
the hard
Proposing that
decisions.
to the
Yeah.
voters as if this is what
Right.
the decisions we've come to, not that the voters can't pull things out, but you're not just plugging in the numbers that come in letters.
Right.
You're then
Yeah.
saying, maybe this one doesn't get as much. and this one.
right. Yeah.
Food for thought.
It just reminds me of,
I know.
a conversation my father had, when the money's gone, the money's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't, it's
Yeah.
gone.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Cool.
And, yeah,
Huh, things all to be discussed throughout the budget season.
yeah.
To be continued.
So I'm out tomorrow, but I'll get, by the end of the week, I'll have your new timeline.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you in advance for all this
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be working on the budget while I'm waiting for my husband at the hospital.
Moving on to 12B, discuss participation in Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission celebration of the American Revolution.
Sounds like a great idea.
What they're asking for here is to establish a committee or a person to jump in. I think Tina should do that.
Oh, no.
There's probably a volunteer out there somewhere that might want to do this.
It's something we should probably reach out to the
Maybe somebody
Historical
on the
Society.
Historical Society?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Hillary or,
it's right up their alley.
yeah.
I know the town participated in the last.
Bicentennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Wells might be interested in something.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep. He'd be great.
Yeah, I think he would be great.
I nominate Bob Wells.
Thanks, Bob.
No, he would. He would be great.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, so I didn't recommend any action tonight. I just
No.
think people should reach out and find out someone, and I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Awesome.
And last on the agenda, 12C, executive session, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee per 1 VSA 313A3.
to enter executive session to consider the employment or evaluation of a town employee
Thank you.
pursuant to Title
Night,
I
ladies.
BSA, Section 313A3, and invite Shane O'Keefe to attend the executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
If you don't mind, Shane, could you give us a second to talk as a board?
Sure.
Second. Oops.
All ready? All right, anyone care to finish off?
You gotta go again.
I gotta go again. I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Bruce.
Shane, in a month when we have, when we bump the first meeting, so January 1st or 2nd
New
is the Monday.